This time on One More Bolt, I let the wifey take power tools to the 65 wagon. So today on One More Bolt, what we're doing is we're going to bust some rust on the floorboards of the 65 and do a little bit of temporary preventative maintenance so that we can keep the car on the road, preserve the floors a little bit until we can do some floor pans. To get this job done, we're going to be using brass wire brushes on a combination of different tools, both power and by hand. And once we knock all the scale off and clean it up a bit, we're going to come back and hit it with a rust reformer. The one that I got is by Rust-Oleum. I don't know if it's any better or worse than the other stuff that's out there, but we're going to throw some of that down. We're going to throw a couple of patch panels over our windows in the floor, basically in an effort to make the car drivable and keep it on the road while we work on the other projects. And once we have the other projects as drivers, we'll bring this one in and we'll actually do a proper floor repair work on it and cut the floor pans out, put new floor pans in, which will probably be a little tricky because the wagon floor pan isn't remade, so we'll probably have to do some custom work in there in the future. But we'll worry about that when the time comes to worry about it.
I did.
You're already, oh man, that's probably gonna eat up a lot of time. But, oh, you're already making good progress over there.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yep, that's basically what I do, knock all that scale loose, get it all out of here, and then we can hit it with the rust reformer. So, long ways to go. As you can see, we only got one, she's got one little spot. I haven't even started on the passenger side yet. One of the things we will need to do is this rail right here was a temporary rail. As you see, the seats are obviously out. Someone welded this in here, so I'm gonna have to cut that back out so I can get rid of it. There's definitely some very shoddy, forgive the jerkiness on the camera right now. There we go. Some very shoddy welds going on right here that just look boogered as all get out. Eventually we'll fix that, but for now it's holding just fine, so we're probably going to leave it alone, just clean it up and hit it with the rust reformer. Take care of some of that, patch that over there, do some little patchwork over here with, basically we're going to rivet some stuff in there. And then, yeah, and then I've got some carpet we can throw in here, which will help with sound. Yeah, all good stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get to work. I've got another camera set up right up there in the window looking down at the floorboards, and we're going to run that at time lapse. And ooh, there's some power. Would you put it in high? No, just fresh battery?
Just fresh battery.
Nice. But yeah, so we'll put that on the time lapse, and once we get everything knocked down and cleaned up, we'll recap where we're at before we start moving on to the next step. Enjoy the ride. That doesn't sound right. I check and make sure it's clear. All right.
That was thunder!
I thought I heard some thunder
I thought
out
I
there.
did too. Ooh, there was some lightning. You know, the one awesome thing about living in Oklahoma is it's like 90 degrees outside with a storm, lightning, thunder, and we're working on the Nova. This is awesome. There is like lightning, like pure as day, just striking.
That's cool.
Yeah. There's something forming right over here.
So we're out here in the midst of getting all this done, as you've seen, and we heard some noise over the equipment. Well, it sounded a lot like thunder cracks, and we paused for a minute. Next thing you know, big old crack of thunder, and here's what's going on.
Hey, lady.
Like literally right over the roof of our shop. You are still on.
Oh, crap.
Just hold it. But yeah, we got what looks like a pretty cool storm building right up over the top of us. Dark clouds illumine while we're busting rust on the 65. There's some pretty cool stuff going on. Oh, dang! I was looking right at that. That was some good lightning right there. Golly. Yeah, so this is what it's like to live in Oklahoma. It was nice. Yesterday it was like 100 and some degrees. It was freaking hot and sunny and dry. And then last night some storm-ish kind of rolled in. After that, this morning was a little gloomy, but still decent. And we went out and started in the shop. And well, since we've been out in the shop, see what's shown up. I guess we might want to check our forecast to make sure they don't have any severe conditions actually listed for us that we should be paying attention to while we're getting down in the shop. Anyway, oh, there's some more lightning going on over there. Hopefully it got that one. Anyway, that's a nice little intermission. I'll probably take a few minutes here to make sure that we don't have anything to be concerned about, and then we'll get back to work on the car. Okay, so we're back in the shop to get ready to get back at this. We looked at the weather, and there's nothing, there's no major warnings or anything we got to worry about. So we're going to get right back to work. We just got some nice ambiance out in the background of the thunderstorm going on, some good lightning going on out there. It's a good show, but we got work to do. So far, we're looking pretty good up in here. Paige's got that side pretty well knocked down. A little cleanup, maybe a little bit more back in that corner. I got some more work to do down in this area, down in here, and then I'll probably pull that bottom half of the rear seat out and we'll hit a little bit better over there and get that, like I said, I got to get that rail cut out, and then we'll be ready to throw some of the rust reformer in there and some patch panel work, and we'll be this car will be good. At least the floor will be good enough to get by until we can do floor pan work later on down the road. So yeah, we'll get back at it, and more time lapse coming your way. Okay, so we're about done for today, but we're not done with this video yet. There'll be more to it. We still got a little more work to do on this. But to wrap up where we're at so far, we went ahead and we busted the rust and we laid down a coat of rust reformer over the whole floor, just the pans. Didn't end up pulling the back seat out. I didn't feel like fighting with it. We'll pull the back seat and work our way further back in the car on it at a different time. The floor's not as bad under the back seat or further back. We were mainly concerned with getting rust reformer on these floor pans or the foot area of the floor pan, because we've got some patchwork we need to do up in that area, and 3 out of the 4 foot pans we've got patchwork to do so that we can keep the car on the road and keep enjoying it. So we're going to let this cure up overnight, and we'll be back out probably tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, to see about riveting in some patch panels. Yep, I said I'm going to rivet them in. Again, this is just a temporary fix until we can do a proper cut the pans out and replace them. But yeah, so that's where we're at. We're tired. We're tired. And so we're going to call it for today and pick it up tomorrow. Which if you're watching this video, I don't know, that'll be in about 5 seconds from now. All right. And we'll see you tomorrow. All right, we're back out to finish up what we started. It's actually been a week since I started this project of doing some patchwork on the floor. Some other stuff came up and I wasn't able to get back out the day after I started, so I had to go through another work week with an unfinished project and the car not moving. But we're back out here in the car to get things going. So let me show you where we're at. I did do some review of the video footage, and my camera decided to go dumb and we didn't get all the coverage on all the work that we did. Don't know why. Probably because it was hot and the cameras don't like working in the heat, but whatever, we kept going anyways. So where we're at now is there's rust reformer paint on all the floors. We busted all the scale off, cleaned it up with the brass brushes, and then after that I went through and through the aid of some CAD work, i.e. cardboard aided design, I fitted a series of areas where I actually want to put some patch panels in for where the bad spots are. And you can see I've got a couple over there on the driver's side. I've got a couple up on the front passenger and a few that are right down here in the rear passenger well. So the plan today, let me put this down for a second. The plan today is to go ahead and I went from my cardboard aided design, which you probably can't even see it on camera, but I labeled where each one went and what size it was, and I got some basic, just some simple sheet metal I cut out using my templates to give me my pieces there, and all my sheet metal patch panels that I'm going to put in have all also been coated with the rust reformer paint just to close them up and make them all the same color. So today we're going to go through and we're going to drill all those. We're going to be using 1/8" rivets. When you're using an 1/8" rivet, you actually don't drill an 1/8" hole. You drill slightly over an 1/8" using a number 30 drill bit. So I was fairly certain I have some of these in my drill set that aren't completely wasted, but I went ahead and ordered a little container of them just to make sure I wouldn't have an issue on drill bits. And then we're also going to use seam sealer on these panels to keep them from vibrating and to close off, try and keep dirt from coming in underneath between where they're riveted in. So in order to get everything drilled and aligned, we're actually going to utilize a tool that is new to me, not new to anyone who's done body work before. It's called a Cleco. These are awesome little guys. Basically, you get them in whatever size hole you need. So in the instance I'm using them for rivets, I got 1/8" Cleco pins. You use a set of Cleco pliers, and they go in just like that. And then you, once you drill your first hole for where your rivet's going to go, you punch this little guy in there. It pinches, and basically it acts like a temporary rivet, so you can get all your holes aligned, everything all drilled and lined up, putting Cleco pins in them. And then once everything's lined up, you can pull your Clecos back out, put your seam sealer or whatever the case, do your weld work, and then get rid of your Cleco pins. It's just, in short, the whole idea behind these is to keep your panels aligned while you're getting everything in place before final fitment, whether that's welding, adhesive, or in my case, it's going to be a combination of seam sealer and rivets. And we're going to be using aluminum rivets. I chose to go with aluminum because this is temporary work, and I want them to be easy to remove in the future, and aluminum rivets are really easy to drill out, so they'll be easy to get back out of there when we do come back to actually do proper floor pan replacement work. So that's the idea of where we're going today. I'm not going to drag it out. I'm just going to get to work. We're going to flash this over to the camera that you might have seen up over there that's going to watch, and we're going to do all this really fast. So here we go. So Clecos are in, all the patch panels are drilled, and they're ready to be riveted into place. These Cleco pins are absolutely fantastic. Like I said at the beginning, this is the first time I've actually used them. I've known what they were for a long time, never actually had any to use, and decided this was the perfect project to make use of them for, so I got myself a small set. If you're interested, I'll put a link to these somewhere down in the description. I'll hide it down there. You can find them on Amazon Prime, which is great. There's a lot of other places that sell them. They come in different kit sets with different sizes, and there's Cleco clamps, all pretty neat stuff. The only ones that I got were 1/8", and that's because I'm going to be using 1/8" rivets, so I didn't fork out to get all the other neat stuff that you can do from the Cleco with Cleco's tools. As time goes on, I probably will expand my collection into other stuff, but for now I just got the 1/8 inch because that's what I actually needed. So the way these work is it's pretty simple. I started with my little patch panel. This one goes right about right here where I've got a hole that you can't really see from that camera angle, but just believe me, there's a hole right there that needs to be covered up. So I took this panel. I started with my cardboard template, my fancy CAD work. Came up with the size of the panel that I needed, cut that from a piece of sheet metal, brought that in here, massaged it to fit the floor so that it would actually, kind of match these contours here. And that the massaging process, which I didn't get on video at all, but basically a combination of using my dead blow, a small body hammer, and some other miscellaneous odds and ends to get a nice shape that actually matches the floor. But at that point, it didn't have any holes drilled in it. It just matched over the floor, which is great. That's an excellent starting point. You could drill a hole, slap a rivet in it, and move on. But I want to go through and put seam sealer on the back of all these panels. One, to make sure they don't vibrate, because I don't want to hear these little patch panels vibrating, which they probably wouldn't because they'll be under carpet, but we're going to make sure anyways by putting some seam sealer on there. And then this will also just help keep dirt and other stuff from all getting up under the carpet and hopefully preserve this floor and a little bit better until I have a chance to replace it. So that's what we're going to be doing here next. But I just want to show you how easy it is to use these Clecos. They basically put it in your pliers. It requires a set of Cleco pliers. You could probably come up with a homemade solution, but the Cleco pliers really aren't that expensive, and they're a pretty simple tool, and they work really well. But you take those, and you drill your first hole, and once you have the first hole at the size you need, you just stick the pin in, and then that helps secure your plate. And once you get the second hole, you slap the second one in there, and so on and so forth, as many as you need to actually secure the panel. So this panel's got 4 here and 3 right here. It's a separate toe panel up here that those other ones are in. But it's got more holes where I'm going to put rivets afterwards, but I didn't need more Clecos in those holes to keep the panel from moving. It was well secured already. But yeah, when you stick these in here, basically, it squeezes it out, it gets narrow, you go through the opening, and then when you come back, it gets wide again on the back side and pinches and pulls, and it's got a spring inside this housing that puts pressure on there. So if there was another panel right behind this, it would be pinching those two panels together. From what it said on the packaging, it says that these have 12 pounds of clamping force, I think is what it said. I don't know if they actually do or not. I have no way to really test that. I do know that when I slap them in there, they work. They held everything in place nicely. And it's as simple as drill a couple of holes, squeeze your pins, slap them down in there, and that panel is now temporarily secured, which is fantastic. It'll stay there until I'm ready to work with it. It won't go anywhere. Or if I needed to add more holes, everything would be perfectly lined up so that when I go back to actually put the rivets in, it won't go anywhere. Or if you were welding a panel in place and you wanted to temporarily secure it while you were welding it, so there might not be a good way to add a magnet or to put a clamp on it, you could add a small hole, put a couple of Clecos in there, and secure that panel in place, and then come back, weld it, remove the Clecos, and then just do a little fill weld on the hole that you drilled for the Cleco pin. Very useful. Again, I'll put a link in my description down below if you want to actually check those out, an Amazon link, just because that's a convenient, easy place to get them. Our next step here is to go through and we'll pull these panels out, and I will get going on actually adding some seam sealer behind these panels, which is as simple as getting that tube opened up, slap it in here, and just like any other silicone grease or whatever, or not grease, but liquid nails, all that sort of stuff, It's just seam sealer in a tube. We'll open that up, and I'm going to go around the perimeter on the back side of these, and I'll put a few globs in the middle that'll squeeze down. That way we get a decent coverage on there, so that the panel's just in there halfway decent. Again, like I've said multiple times in this video, this is a temporary solution. I guess there's no reason you couldn't leave it as a permanent solution if you were just doing one small spot, but for me this is a temporary solution, just until I can get the other hot rod back on the road, and then we'll work on doing a proper floor plan. I cannot say that on video. Floor pan repair job where we'll actually cut all this bad floorboard out, because it's even where, I mean, I patched up the bad spots where there's holes, but even with that, there's still, they're just not great. There's a good bit of deterioration in these that just, it's beyond really being able to save as a good floor pan. Hey, I said it, floor pan. So yeah, I'll get going on that. Again, it's kind of a slow process. It's kind of tedious. There's not a whole lot of excitement there. So we're going to do that in a lickety split high speed video, just like the last few segments. Yeah, and here we go. Okay, so that's pretty much a wrap for this video. There's still obviously a lot to do here. We've got to get well, I've got some carpet we're going to put in here. We've got to get some seats put back in here, and we're not going to put those ugly, horrible things that were in here back. As you can see, we went through replacing all the Cleco pins with rivets. So all the panels are in. We use the panel adhesive, or not panel adhesive, seam sealer on the backs of all those to get everything in nice and tight. Worst pair of worst rivet gun, crappy handheld thing that I've probably ever used. Couldn't find my old one that I had before, so I just ordered up another one. Obviously, I went way too low buck on that one. You probably saw me fighting with it over and over again to get the stud out of it. They just didn't want to release the studs. I probably spent more time getting the studs popped out of it than I actually did using the tool to pop rivets into place. So I don't recommend this. Whatever this brand is, this is off Amazon, Value Max. Yeah, I don't recommend that. The Clecos, on the other hand, worked awesome. Super happy with that. On a few of the panels, I ended up using them to hold the panel in place while I got the first couple rivets in. And overall, I think that it worked out pretty good. There's all my brads that I pulled. Yeah, the temporary panels are in. The floors, the windows in the floor are covered up and should be able to throw some carpet over this. And at least, we're not going to be taking this car out in bad weather. It's just, that's not what the intention is for it right now. It's just to be a cruiser that we can enjoy a little bit while I'm working on the other cars. So it'll do. It's not, is it a perfect solution? No. Is it the best possible way you could have fixed this floor? No. Obviously, a new floor pan is the best way to fix it. But it'll do right now for what we actually want it to do in the meantime. And I think we're going to enjoy the car. Hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you enjoyed the new tools. Again, the key tools in doing any of this, if you've never done anything like this before and you're going to dive into something that's a little bit rusty and you want to do some basic patchwork to keep it going, step one, knock all the rust scale off. That's going to be using a brass wire brush, not a steel wire brush, a brass wire brush. That's important. A steel wire brush, the bristles on it are made of the same metal that the actual floor is made of, which means you may start pulling up actual good metal with that. You'll also throw more sparks with it. The brass brushes, the brass itself is a softer metal, so it won't actually eat away at the good metal because the steel is harder than the brass. So it might take a little bit longer to get it all knocked loose, but it does work well to help preserve as much of the good metal as possible and still get rid of all the rust scale that's going to prevent you from putting down a rust reforming paint, which takes us to the stage two, which is once you get it cleaned up, use a rust reforming paint. It doesn't have to be stripped to bare metal. It doesn't have to be completely paint free. It doesn't have to be a perfectly clean surface. What you want it to be basically dust free so that the paint's going on to whatever's there. And then you want it to be all the rust scale and everything gone. And then you spray it on there. And I don't exactly know how they work, but the rust reformers, they bond with the rust and they help stop it from getting worse. So it's a good temporary solution to preserve what you have until you can have it fixed with new metal. New metal is really the only way to fix rusted out stuff, is to put new metal in. But a temporary solution to slow the problem until you can do that is clean it up, rust reform it. And then if you're doing patch panels and you don't know how to weld, or it's like this where I didn't want to put all the effort in because I know I'm going to be cutting all these floor pans out and replacing them, Rivet is an excellent, simple solution. It's an inexpensive solution. You can pick up panels of, just chunks of sheet metal from your local hardware store in various sizes. If I remember right, it's 20 gauge is what I used on this, which is it's fairly thin, but it plugs all the windows, so it's going to do the job. And then when you put those panels in, use your seam sealer. Generally, I mean, you can probably get it on Amazon. Again, seam sealer, that's important, and it's because let's see, no, it doesn't specifically say on here, but what's unique about the seam sealer is it cures flexible. It doesn't cure rigid, and that's what you want. You don't want something that's going to cure rigid, because that's just going to crack and crumble. The seam sealer cures a little bit more flexible, so that it acts kind of basically like a rubber seal, kind of, but in a much thinner method. Put that behind your panel when you rivet that on there. That'll help stop it from vibrating, and it'll help keep some more of the dirt and debris and everything out. But yeah, and then that's your key thing. You could easily do this. I mean, you could do this without Clecos, but the Cleco was very useful in order to do all of it just continuously in one loop and not have to go back and forth. And it definitely helped out big time with getting all the rivets drilled and aligned before having to go through and put seam sealer on and have that start curing while drilling and popping rivets at the exact same time. And they're not too expensive. I think the Cleco set that I got with pliers, and I think it's 50 of the 1/8 inch pins, was about, I think it was right about $45, give or take a little bit. And then I bought rivets. Again, I used aluminum because they'll be easier to drill out later on when I'm trying to get all this out of here, if I want to remove these panels and do something different, depending on how I end up doing the patches on the floor. So that's really about it. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for watching the channel. If you have any questions about anything that I did, feel free to ask them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. Be sure to hit that like and that subscribe. That will really help out as I try and grow the channel and try and do more. Next time you see the car in the next video, the interior, the carpet, and the seats will probably already be in. I don't think there's anything really exciting about putting carpet and seats in that's worthy of doing a video for, so I'm not going to do a video for that. But we will be fixing the exhaust. Well, not really fixing it, finishing it. The person that got this car from stopped the exhaust before the rear axle. We're going to take it over the axle, kick it out to the sides, and that should really help with keeping fumes out of the car, and it'll help with keeping the sound from reverberating under the car. And hopefully we'll still sound pretty good, and maybe not quite so intensely loud inside. It doesn't help that inside we don't have much of a headliner. We got some work to do up there, which causes some of that more echo. Same in the back. There's some areas where there should be fabric and no door panels. All these sort of things contribute to how much noise is in the car. Putting the carpet in is really going to help. Getting the exhaust outside of the body or close to outside of the body is going to really help with mitigating the excessive noise and make the car just more comfortable to drive. And then and it needs a tune-up, and we got to fix the wiring. And the tune-up and the exhaust will probably be one video. The wiring's probably going to be another video all by itself, and I'm going to dive into that one a good bit, because I'm not going to just go with like a painless kit or something like that. As great as those are, it's a bit pricey. And with what's really needed on an old car like this that's not running electronic ignition, well, technically it's an electronic ignition. It's got an HEI, an all-in-one HEI. So it technically is electronic ignition, but it's still simple. It's only a couple wires. And it's not running fuel injection. It doesn't have a bunch of electronics. So there's not a lot of wires to it. So it's not too complicated to just get some wire and wire it up so it all works correctly. Right now it does not, because someone put this switch in right here in one of the dial holes for the radio, which I'm glad it's not cut or drilled out. But it looks like this side may have been drilled out. Hopefully not. Maybe I can't tell. Doesn't matter right now. But they did that because they didn't know how to wire in the fans properly, and we're going to fix that. We're going to get the fans wired in properly, get the electric choke wired in properly, and fix some of the other garbage under the hood. But yeah, that'll be in a future video, so stick around and watch for that video to drop sometime in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.